with a calculator than a microphone. Let's see, can you guys hear me without this, or here?
Right there is fine.
Perfect, okay, try to hold it right here. Yeah, I guess I'm here to talk about the history of baseline, give a little bit of a backstory. I know a lot of you have heard this story before, but I'll dive into it again. It's kind of a snorry, but I guess my engineering career, I worked at 5 engineering firms before I started Baseline, and I pretty much had an issue with every single one of them before I went out on my own. The industry in the 90s and 2000s was stuffy, and the companies kept you under their thumbs. And so my first job out of college was downtown Denver. I lasted about a year and a half there, and then in 1993, went to interview for a new position up in Fort Collins. It was a TST, you may know the company. And I can remember the guy across the table sliding this ladder, this corporate ladder across and saying, in 10 years, you're a project engineer now, but in 10 years, you can be a project manager. I kind of thought to myself, well, what if I want to be a project manager in 7 years and I have my PE and I'm able to do that? Anyway, I didn't take that job. I ended up at a 300-person firm doing mostly Corps of Engineer work as a project engineer. And when we talk about rigid corporate ladder, they had me doing drainage reports and cost estimating. That's it. Your job is drainage reports and cost estimating. I'm looking at the project engineer that's been there a year, and I'm like, what if I want to do construction documents? I think I'd be really good at that. Grading plans, utility plans, it looks pretty cool. Nope, you are grading drainage reports and cost estimating. Like, okay. And then I can remember some things getting lost in the grapevine between the division manager to the project manager to me, the project engineer, going back to get things approved, saying, why'd you do that? This is all wrong. I said, well, that's what I was told. Move the door from here to here, and it's not what the client wanted. I remember telling my boss, well, what if I, were able to talk to the client and take these directives and get them approved by you? Nope, not allowed to do that. You're on drainage reports and cost estimates. So I was there for about 2.5 years. I remember this deadline coming down, a big deadline, and we were all going to be working late. We were going to be working at least till midnight. So I'm sure I finished up my cost estimate by 1 a.m., I think it was. I went into my boss's office and said, here, I'm done. How's this look? He's like, good, looks good. I start walking out, and I'm like, it's 1 a.m., pretty late. I'm like, hey, you don't expect me to be here at 8 a.m., do you? And he looked up at me and he said, if I'm going to be here, you're going to be here. So I'm like, all right, go home, get 4 hours of sleep, come back to the office, get there by 8 a.m. And that dude didn't show up until 9:30. So I stared at a blank computer screen until 10 a.m., just stewing about it, pretty upset about it. So I was obviously a short timer at that company, went to another consulting firm, kind of like Baseline, a lot of land development clients, small districts, and I was progressing from project engineer to project manager. And I can remember the boss coming in one day saying, this is in November of my first year there, we're having a banner year, it's going to be a great year, Christmas bonuses are coming. Come late December, I get a bonus for $100. $100, sweet. Banner year, I guess that's awesome. A whole nother year progressed. I got my PE by then and was managing projects, and I looked up at a resource scheduling meeting, and I had 9 projects, and the other 2 project managers had 2 apiece. And hey, they're working on Lowe's and Walgreens, Bennigan's, and I'm on 5-lot subdivisions with clients that don't pay. And I have 9 of these stepchild projects, and they have 2 high-profile ones. I realized quickly that the only incentive for me to get this work done was I was going to get more work, and I kept getting this work, and I was able to get it done with no incentive to get it done. So I was a short timer there. I was ready to get out of the industry. I really was. All my friends who graduated CSU with social sciences degrees, they were selling cell phones. They were in the medical industry selling like plastic elbows or whatever. They're making a killing, and I'm sitting there living off 2% increases in my salary and $100 Christmas bonuses. But toughed it out. Unfortunately, one of the colleagues that I worked with at my first company in Denver started his own surveying firm. And he called me up one day and says, hey, I'm doing a ton of engineering work, engineering projects. Would you like to come out and be my engineer? I'm like, sure, that'd be awesome. In fact, that's where I met Doug Lancaster about 22 years ago. We worked together for accounting, so he knows this piece of the story. And we agreed that we would split the profits in this engineering department. I had a 3-person team. We had about 9 clients, 9 projects. It was 1997 by then, and things were going good. Got to the end of the year, I think we looked at the books, and the engineering department made, let's say, $20,000 more than it cost the company. So we went to the owner of the company and said, okay, we're going to split that profit, right? He's like, yeah, we can split that, $10,000 to you, $10,000 to me. I said, that's sweet. And then I turned to him and I said, we could really grow this thing. We could be 8 people in a couple of years, I think, if we did it right. Why don't you work me into equity? I feel like I need skin in the game. Let's build this thing. I'll never forget what he told me. He said, well, I can't just give you anything. And he said it 3 times, kind of strange. I can't just give you anything. I can't just give you anything. I'm like, okay, I got it. You can't just give me anything. Well, I can't give you $10,000 in engineering profit. That's what I felt like. So I went home and I said, well, I know one way to get equity in an engineering company, and that was to start my own. So it's kind of the story of how Baseline got started. And we really had 2 simple concepts, and it was to give engineers incentives to get the job done and to be a true resource to our clients. I mean, the void was there in 1998. The old joke, all my clients would say, oh yeah, we'll use you. You know why? Because we haven't heard of you, because everybody in the industry had a bad reputation. So, things took off. We had this horizontal structure. The 3 of us became an 8-person firm pretty soon. We were a resource to our clients, and the mantra was to hire self-motivated, self-disciplined people. And so as we grew, we stayed as a sister company to this company in Wheat Ridge for a while, and then in year 2000, we decided to hire a surveyor, self-motivated, self-disciplined. So we grew the surveying department. 2003, we hired a water wastewater manager. That department became 4-person pretty quickly. Hired a guy from Costa Rica, so we got to be doing work in Costa Rica. So we chased his kind of dreams down to Costa Rica. That lasted about 4 years till the recession hit. 2006, one of my better clients, the Stevenson Group, said, there's a guy, his name's Vince, he's a planner. He wants to get out of his basement, he's awesome, he'd be awesome for you. So Vince and I went to lunch, and Vince joined Baseline, and talk about self-motivated, self-discipline, that's one of the best. Same time, we had identified Northern Colorado as kind of this triangle between Fort Collins, Love, and Greeley, and that was going to develop. That was about 2006. Hired Rick, and he kind of built the foundation of what Loveland is today. And in 2008, Chris said he wanted to go back to Steamboat, so we chased his passions back there. So and that's kind of how it's kind of the backstory of Baseline and how it became what it is. And it really is chasing individuals' passions and taking care of people and self-motivated, self-disciplined people. And I think that's what we're all here today. The last 20 years have been really humbling. I can't believe what we've grown to become. My dream of it being an employee-owned company has happened. So we're an ESOP. We've made a commitment to being an evergreen company, which is building a company that lasts 100 years. We're not going to sell out to a big conglomerate. Clients don't have to worry about that. You guys don't have to worry about working for AECOM or Tetra Tech. So I think the future looks really bright. I'm really pleased at how strategic planning happened last year. We reset our vision and mission to be an employee-owned company built by and for our employee owners. And that really started taking hold 4th quarter of 2018, as evidenced by, as I mentioned at the holiday party, the Baseline for community, something that the majority of people in this room wanted, and not something that I would have come up with or known you guys wanted, and definitely not able to implement it. So I was really impressed with that. This launch party is another item that you guys wanted. So you really are shaping the company, keep shaping it, and seriously, if whoever's passionate about chasing their passions, we will listen. We are not afraid to think outside the box. So I think that's about my time. I'll turn it over to a couple self-disciplined, self-motivated people like Matt and Chris.
Thanks, John. Speaking of, as John said, self-motivated, self-disciplined people, Chris is going to stand. Everybody, Mr. Chris Rundle from Steamboat. If you haven't met him, please come up and shake his hand. Why don't you take that and
stand up right in the triangle. Everybody hear me like that?
So we thought it would be a good segue from John's message to dive in a little bit around Chris's story and how Chris has been able to plant an office in Steamboat and turn that idea / dream into a 3-person office that continues to kick butt and take names almost daily. So maybe for the group, Chris, could you just give some context about what was going on in your head, and you were working down in Golden in 2007, 2008?
Yeah, so I started working for Baseline in 2004, so I was working in the Golden office. And around 2007, when the economy was still booming, I approached John about opening a branch office in Steamboat. Having lived and worked in Steamboat before coming to Baseline, and had a lot of contacts there, and thought that with everything booming, and the engineering firms in Steamboat were so busy that they were telling clients that they could start things for several months. So kind of felt like it would be a pretty easy in there, and pitched the idea to John, and John was receptive and totally supportive of it. So in between having that conversation and actually making the move to Steamboat to start the office, several months elapsed as we kind of got things together, and that's when the economy started to kind of tank. But we got up there and started the challenge. It was a little tougher start because of the economy than we had hoped, but that was the start of it.
So you get up to Steamboat, and then the recession hit. What were some of those conversations at home like? What were the biggest challenges when you're like, oh well, we moved up here, now what?
I think being an engineer and an introvert, like a lot of people in the room, I think the business development fell on me mostly to drum up projects and clients, and so that was fairly challenging because a lot of the initial reach out were cold calls, and a lot of people, businesses need a reason to change to another consulting firm, and you've got to build that trust. So it was sometimes discouraging, but at the same time, it helped me build confidence to have those kind of conversations and be in those situations. And I think the other part of it was kind of the risk side and my comfort levels with risk. And it's interesting to think back on it now because as your career evolves and your family situation evolves, I feel like the stress levels and risk kind of changes. At first, it was just me and my wife, and so there was risk there, going and starting something new in Steamboat. And then as my confidence kind of grew, we started building relationships with clients, getting work. Then we had 2 kids, so that made it feel a little different. I've got 2 little mouths to feed, and it wasn't just me and my wife. But at the same time, with that confidence, there was that balance of still kind of felt the same as far as like comfort levels and risk. And then a couple years later, Zach came on board, and Kyle came on board this last summer. So that kind of added another level of risk and stress from my perspective of trying to keep enough work coming in to keep those guys busy. But at the same time, the office kept growing and getting more strong relationships with clients, and yeah.
So if there's anybody here today who's had that idea of, hey, I can start an office, I could be a office planter down the line, what would we some of the foundational things that you tell them about, or advice that you'd offer for them, that person?
I'd probably say, like, you have to want it, and show the initiative to kind of stick with it. It's not always going to be easy. I'd probably say kind of always keep doors open. Like, I'm thinking back on some of the clients that we've built relationships with, they kind of came out of relationships with other either peers or colleagues where I've never even thought that we would have a project or a client with that person. But so I guess the takeaway from that is always being thoughtful and kind and respectful to people, and try to help other people out, scratch people's backs, and it comes back karma.
So speaking of the risky side of things that you mentioned, you actually kind of in that Great Recession time frame had to go on contract basis with Baseline for a little while, correct?
Yep. So that was kind of not too long after moving to Steamboat, and with the economy being the way it was slow getting work. And maybe going back to what you said about advice for people is being flexible. And for me, what kept things going was being able to support the other offices, the Golden office and the Greeley office, to work on engineering projects remotely, to kind of keep my billable hours up while at the same time pursuing work in Steamboat. And to your question, John, made a call, and he said, it's pretty slow. You can either move back to Golden or change to a contract status and stay in Steamboat. And he said, I know what the answer is. So stay in Steamboat and work as a contract status. And so yeah, it worked out. We kind of worked through that, and I was able to come back on as an employee after about 9 months or a year.
Excellent. So looking back at all of that, and certainly going from a salary-based position to contract and back to salary, that's quite a journey. Looking back, what advice would you give to 2007, 2008 Chris Rundle?
I think I've got to my notes here. Stumped me. I guess I'd say kind of keep challenging yourself, and don't be afraid to get out of your comfort zone. Doing this right now gets me out of my comfort zone. And then probably in closing, that it'll be harder than you think, but also more rewarding. And not just monetarily, like just the pride of growing the business in that way, and what we've kind of built up in Steamboat.
Excellent. Any questions for Chris about his story or what he's gone through, or because it's 10, 11 years now, right? Any questions that come to mind from the group that you'd like to ask Chris?
No.
Chris, when you were trying to win work, what was some examples of how you engaged with folks that you hadn't done work with, done business with, and convinced them to do business with Baseline?
Can you repeat the question? Because
Yeah.
people maybe went back didn't hear it.
So the question was, when we were approaching clients, what was the approach to kind of winning over clients to bring them over to Baseline? One thing comes to mind of kind of leaning on the other folks at Baseline and people's strengths. And I remember specifically we had we do a lot of work for the city of Steamboat Springs, and I feel like I think it was the first contract project that we got with the city. One of our old employees, Cooper Best, came up to Steamboat for an interview that was for an RFP response. And Cooper was a great communicator, great talker, kind of great salesman. So having him combined with maybe me on the technical side, I think gave them, instilled some confidence and trust in us, and I don't know, that was one example. Anybody else?
Any other questions for Chris? How many people were with Baseline when you moved up there?
Maybe 10, 12, 15.
So you moved up there with a support net, give or take, of 10 or 15 people. And the reason why I asked that is now we have a support net of almost 50 people. So again, for those who have that idea, that self-motivated, self-disciplined gene in you, and I think most, if not everybody in this room does have that, and you have that idea of planting an office in your head, talk to Chris more, ask him questions, see how that worked out. And it doesn't even have to be as grand as moving 3 hours away and starting an office. Maybe it's another technical passion that you have and things like that. So Chris can certainly give you some perspective there. Go ahead, Chris.
Now that you've got some momentum, you've got some roots, you've got the Steamboat branch established, well established within Steamboat, what's your vision for the next 5 to 10 years for that branch?
We've been trying to get surveying in-house in the Steamboat office. We sub almost all of our surveying and engineering projects out to other local firms. So that would be one goal, I think, in that 5-year plan, maybe even sooner, hopefully. I guess I would see it there being another person or two, engineers. Who knows? Maybe it's another planner. Maybe so I would see it also kind of diversifying our client base. We're fairly heavy in municipal work, and it's nice to have a diverse client base for stability. So I'd like to see us more ingrained in the land development community, and then also the hope would be that we can expand a little bit geographically and start doing work in some of the surrounding towns like Craig and Oak Creek.
Was there a point where you talked a lot about, being, was there ever a point where you were kind of like, finally made it, I'm okay now?
I
You're
don't
probably
know.
still not there, right?
Yeah, I don't know if I'll ever be there, just my personality and how I think about things, but maybe to some extent, I can't pinpoint the date, but I felt like at some point, the work that I was working on, that Zach works on, was primarily projects in Steamboat, and it was also kind of using resources from Golden, Steve Batchelder, and Jordan, and other folks. So maybe that might have, to me, felt like that sort of moment where I was like, I feel like we're stable and established. Zach?
I might add that when we moved offices too, because Chris and I worked in a 10 by 10 room together for the first 2 years, and when we moved, expanded it, it's felt pretty good, making progress.
Yeah, good point. It's nice having a little more space. Yeah, Deanne.
As being a small business owner before I came to this line, I'm wondering if you could expand on the benefits of being an arm of a bigger corporation versus striking out on your own.
I mean, the benefits are huge. I don't know if I have I have motivation and initiative, but to start something on your own where you're having to do all the admin stuff that Tiffany and the HR folks do, probably you work twice as much. You're probably working 12 to 14 hour days, I would think. Probably make ends, just kind of keep everything flowing. I know a guy in Steamboat who's kind of a one-man shop. He does all of his own invoicing, from start to bottom. He does it all, and I think having the support network allowed me to focus on the engineering side, on the business development side and building relationships. And I think part of building those relationships is getting repeat client work and referrals from clients, and that means doing quality work and doing what you say you're going to do, meeting deadlines. So I feel like it's almost impossible to do that at times if you don't have that support network. Or it'd be really challenging, I think. So.
Great. Any other questions for Chris? If you ever have the opportunity to visit Steamboat, obviously Steamboat has its own allures, but go visit Chris. Just be aware that if you go to lunch or breakfast with him, he's like the mayor. He's got to make his rounds and shake hands and kiss babies, and it'll be like 10, 15 minutes before you can actually sit down and eat because he's got to say hi to everybody. But that's also part of being in a small town and schmoozing a little bit, right?
Yep. Yep, come up anytime you want.
Excellent. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it. These two are by my count. I'm not going to swear that these numbers are 100% true because it would be weird if I walk around and ask this question. But I believe milestone-wise we had 3 weddings and 3 new babies in our baseline family this year. So congratulations to all those folks. We, over the Christmas season, donated 561 items of food, 475 pounds worth of food that we donated to the various food banks around town. And we adopted 20 little kids and for our Adopt the Angel Tree Drive, I'm sorry. So that was really great to see, and it was great to see everybody helping out, loading up those gifts that one afternoon, and thank you for everybody who participated in that as well. So now I'm going to pass the microphone over to Julie and give you a little bit of update on what's going on the human resources side of things, and thank you for helping out and doing a lot of the legwork for today as well.
Sure. Everyone who's presented might want to check the bottom of their shoes. We're missing one of our triangle points here.
Me, I'm the winner!
75 days.
It's not coming back either, sorry.
That's fine. I think I'm out of range, actually. Can you help me out?
Oh,
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I just want to recap a couple of things that happened here in 2018. We did have 18 new hires, which is great. And I also want to point out that for the awards that we'll be giving out later this afternoon, every single division had at least one hire that they nominated for their Rookie of the Year. And I think that's really great and really speaks to how well every one of the divisions gets along and how the new hires are all fitting in. So if you're new here this year, like me, welcome. We're really glad to have everyone here. We also established our buddy program this year, which I know a number of you have taken part in, but if you haven't, our buddy program is when you're onboarding a new hire, you have someone you can go to for anything you might need, how things work, where do we keep things in the office, where should I go to lunch, how do I do my timesheet, those kind of things. And I think that program has been really successful so far as well. We also got a new benefits broker this year, which won't affect anyone outwardly. You don't interact with them really, but what they do is help us on the back end to make sure we're getting the best deals for all of our benefits, and they have also given us some other little perks that I'll be going over a little bit later in the slideshow as well. We also got a new onboarding presentation, and you're welcome to anyone who's gotten to sit through that this year. I know it's thrilling, and you loved it. And the last thing is we changed the vacation rollover amount, so now your max accrual is the same as your rollover, when previously it was different. So that's just one positive change we've seen this year as well. And if that didn't, if that didn't happen for you this year when you check your benefit accruals, please let me know because we'll need to work that out.
My bad.
No, that's good. So looking ahead for 2019, we're getting a new 401k provider with Empower. We're working right now to move from security benefit to Empower. So how will this affect you guys? Luckily, up front, it's not much. There will be a blackout period coming up when we move our assets from one plan to the other. You'll get a notice prior to that blackout period that tells you exactly when it is. And during that blackout period, you won't be able to change your investments or anything like that. But once the blackout period is lifted, all of your money will have been mapped over into similar accounts at Empower. And then you can choose to change those investments or leave them where they've been mapped over to. They are being mapped to similar accounts to what you're in right now. So once that happens, we will also have representatives from Empower coming out, and they will show you how to use the website. It's a much more friendly website than what we have right now. It's super straightforward. Those of us who have been working on the 401k have seen it, and it looks really great. You'll be able to put in your target date and see where you're at, and see how much more you need to get to where you want to be before you retire with graphics. And it's just a really intuitive website, and I think it's going to be a really good change for us. Then upcoming this year, we're also going to have more training events, and I really appreciate everyone being here today for our kickoff, our launch of the 2019 training. One of the things that we got through Hayes was a library of training that you can look through, and if there's anything that you feel that you want to learn more about, benefits-wise, even company-wise, management-wise, if you feel like you need to work on some of your skills, Hayes has provided us an entire library with trainings for those. And if you'd like to be signed up, just let me know, and I'll get you logged in on the website, and you can access that training. A little bit of a not fun one that I will be assigning to everyone in the company is the anti-harassment training. So please look for that email coming out this year.
Woo!
I know, it's really exciting. And then the last thing that I'm going to be launching this, well, hopefully not the last, but one of the ones that I've planned for this year is a new review model. So mid-year, I'll be looking to change up how we're currently doing reviews, including manager reviews, and more detail will be coming out about that later on in the year. There's also going to be a new handbook. It's just about ready. It's going to come out probably by the end of this month, and it will have some important updates, a couple of policy changes, and there'll just be a little bit different wording on some of the sections. I know you all signed a handbook acknowledgement when you came on board, whenever that may have been, but for every new version, you do have to sign a new acknowledgement, and I will chase you down on this one to make sure that you signed it. So once that's distributed, make sure you sign it and get it back to me, or I will start hounding you. So I just wanted to go over a little bit of our benefits as well. And our providers, we have United Healthcare for medical and vision, and I know people sometimes get confused on, wait, who is our dental through or vision? So I just wanted to go over that a little bit here. And then for principal, we have dental and short and long-term disability through them. One change that you may have seen to the short-term disability that we had this year is that previously you were only eligible for 60% of your basic weekly paycheck. But that has been extended now to where you can use sick or vacation to supplement that to get up to 100% of your basic weekly pay. So we actually improved that plan a little bit, which I think is a great thing. Hopefully no one has to go on disability, but if you do, it's just a little bit more of a cushion for you. Okay, so I also wanted to walk you guys through myuhc.com. This is the United Healthcare website, and it's a really good resource. If you need to find a doctor, if you went to the doctor and you had a claim and you haven't seen a bill for it, and you're wondering what's going on, you can just click up here on your claims and accounts. You can see your claims that are in process, and it will tell you. This is actually mine, so I didn't take a screenshot of the actual function that they have, but they have graphs for you that's basically like a circle, and it will show you how much on your out-of-pocket max and how much on your deductible that you have left to pay. So you can also come on here, find your member ID for any of these things that you need when your doctor's asking for that, as well as your vision ID. So your medical and your vision are actually two different ID numbers. And if you've lost your ID card, which I know happens all the time for whatever reason, you never got it in the mail, you can go ahead and click over there on the print new member ID cards. You can find a doctor, you can look at what prescriptions you've gotten and where you're sending them. It's just a really good resource. And if you have any questions about how to log on, or you've never seen this before and you're very confused at what I'm even talking about, please let me know, because it's definitely a good resource. And this is just the summary of what I was just mentioning. Then I also want to talk about our Healthiest You benefit. I know I've talked about this to a number of you before, but I also know that we only have a couple people from our company signed up, and it would be really great if we could get even more signed up. What Healthiest You is it's an app on your phone. It's completely free to you. There is no copay when you visit a doctor on Healthiest You. So what you do is sign up for the app. You'll put in some of your information ahead of time, your name, where you live, any dependents that you want covered, so your spouse or your children, and you can get an appointment with a doctor 24/7. You can set the appointment for the future, or you can ask for the earliest available appointment. And they can handle up to 70% of what normal doctor's visits will be, except this is 100% free. There's no copay. So if you break your leg, please go to the emergency room. But if you have a cold, if you have a sinus infection, if your kid is screaming all night because they have an ear infection, and you don't have time to go to a doctor, it's the middle of the night, they're not open, this is the best app to do that on. And like I said, completely free. And when you sign up, they enter you to win iPads and all different kind of stuff every month just by being signed up. So it's definitely a good resource. And if we have a lot of interest in people learning more about this, the Healthiest You people also would be happy to send someone out to the office to show us exactly what the app is capable of as well. So let me know if you download this and have any questions. And then we also have our employee assistance program. I know no one in this room has ever been stressed, so that probably won't apply. But if you are feeling stressed, or if you think something's wrong, if you need help in any kind of way, we do have our employee assistance program there. It's a great mental health resource as well as a legal resource to help you with childcare. If you need to find elder care for your parents, they have resources to help you find that and even just navigate how to start doing that. They have self-assessments on there where you can find out if you think, oh, I'm really struggling with getting through my daily life. I feel like I might be depressed, but I don't want to talk to someone about it. You can go on here, do a self-assessment, and then the best part is they have 24/7 phone consultations with mental health professionals. They're always there to help you. Again, it's free, and they can recommend you to an in-person resource that you can talk to. So it's definitely a great benefit that I hope everyone takes advantage of, because it's something that I know not a lot of people know about. We do have information about it on the intranet, and I provided the phone number here if you want to mark it down. It is also on the intranet, or you can feel free to come and talk to me if you feel like this is a resource that you want to take advantage of. Then finally, I wanted to go over a couple things about the relaxation allowance. So it's $40 a month, and you can be reimbursed for anything that relaxes you. This includes gym memberships, ski passes, music lessons, whatever floats your boat and gets you relaxed. The important thing about the relaxation allowance is that it's just for you. It doesn't apply to anyone else in your family. It's not transferable to anyone else. So when you submit us the receipt for us to give you the $40 a month for that, you'll really just need to have something on the receipt that shows that it's being used for you. And if you have any questions about that, when you submit your receipt, just let us know. Just say, hey, is this good enough? And we'll be more than happy to work with you on that. Then I want to talk about the flex scheduling as well. So what does your flex scheduling actually affect? Well, it affects your utilization rate. So however much you work, We're trying to get people highly utilized. You do have a target number. If you don't know what your target utilization rate is, please talk to me or your manager, and they'll be happy to let you know what our expectation is for you for that. It also affects your bonus, and it affects your ESOP eligibility. For the ESOP, you do need to have 1,000 hours of service to be eligible for that. And so if you're coming in a little bit under 40 hours a week, every week, you might need to be very aware of whether or not you're qualified for the ESOP that year.
What is flex scheduling?
So that's just in terms of,
Just in case people don't know.
yeah, so flex scheduling basically is the number of hours that you're in the office. If you're flexing your schedule, let's say you'll be working extra on some days and working less on other days, or taking advantage of being a salaried employee and maybe not hitting exactly 40 every week. Then everyone's favorite subject, I'm pretty sure everyone in this room has gotten an email from me about this at one point or another, your timesheets. So for your timesheets, just please make sure you're using the correct code. A lot of times we have people submitting things like for sick that aren't really sick, or using vacation to go to a meeting, which doesn't really make sense. Don't waste your vacation time. You earned that. Don't put it when you're going to a meeting. And then finally, if you guys could try and fill out your timesheets on a daily basis, that would be great, because on those times when things don't get submitted on time, it's really helpful to us to be able to look and see at least how many hours you have filled out for that week, and make an estimate then for payroll. And I do appreciate everyone's push to get their timesheets in on time over the Christmas and New Year's break. We really appreciated that with processing payroll on time for that. Okay, I wanted to open it up to any questions, if anyone had any general HR questions for me. Julie?
Tell me more about the relaxation allowance. I've never even heard of that.
Yes. So, Tiffany, can you go back to that slide, please? So the relaxation allowance is there for you to use. It's $40 a month. It started off with the intention of being for gym memberships, but not everyone can go to the gym. Not everyone wants to go to the gym. So it's basically whatever relaxes you. For example, well, it doesn't relax me, but I use mine for physical therapy. So it's really just something that helps improve your life, and the company wants to support that and promote that as part of our work-life balance. If you have any specific questions about what it can and can't be used for, feel free to talk to me or Tiffany. We're happy to clarify for you.
One little side note, it is a taxable benefit, so it's not a flat $40 reimbursement. It goes on your check as an allowance, and it is taxed.
Okay. So is that something that Baseline just offers? It's not through some kind of...
Correct, yeah, it goes on your paycheck, so you submit your receipts to me and Tiffany, and then we process it once a month with payroll.
It's because John is super nice and awesome.
Yeah.
Yep, it is a John thing.
Cool.
So any gym that you, so no, it doesn't require you to go to any specific gym or anything like that. A lot of people use it for massage, manicures, pedicures for all you guys. I know you're all about the mani-pedi. Anything like that. It's just, but it is limited to $40 a month. If you sign up for an entire year gym membership or something like that, we break that up over all of your payrolls. But otherwise, if it's something you're just doing on a monthly basis, it is limited to one thing, either a gym reimbursement or a massage, not.
Yeah, and that reminds me actually of another point. So if you buy a gym pass or something, but you're not starting it until, like, let's say I bought a gym pass for the new year, but I'm not starting at my new gym until March. The reimbursements then won't start for you until you're actually using the pass, so they won't start until March.
So yeah, so that receipt not only really needs to show your name, but it also needs to kind of show a date range of when that is. I know that's not so great with ski passes, but we do kind of know when the ski season is, if that pass is for the entire season versus I bought a 3-trip pass or whatever.
Any other questions about anything HR related, the EAP, or Healthiest You.
Yeah, so for clarification, what is tied to, some people don't use our healthcare, some people use something
Mhm.
else. So what of these perks that you talked about are tied to the healthcare
Sure.
enrollment?
So for Healthiest You, you have to be enrolled to use that benefit, but if you have dependent children that are not on our plan, they don't have to be enrolled in our health plan. So if you have kids or a spouse that are not on our plan, they can still take advantage of Healthiest You through you being on our plan. As far as the EAP, it's separate. So you don't have to be signed up for your plan if it's your parents-in-law that you're needing help finding elder care for. That doesn't matter. They're there to help you, and it's just a benefit that's provided to us free. So it's a really good benefit, and if you're ever going through something, I really encourage you to reach out to them. They have a lot of resources.
I got a question on that short-term and long-term
Yeah.
disability. I know at some places you have to use up all your vacation time, then you have to use up all your sick pay
Right.
before that starts, or it won't start until you've been out of work for 30 days, or some other crazy stipulations. So, but you said you can use your time off, or your
Yep.
PTO, or your sick pay. So when does it kick in?
So we have an elimination period on our plan, which means the amount of time from when you're disabled to when the plan starts paying out of 8 days. So on the 8th day, you'll start receiving payment for that. Then our plan was recently renegotiated this past summer to say that they'll start paying it out after that 8th day, so you don't have to get your PTO and sick out of the way prior to. But because they only pay 60% of your basic weekly, you can supplement that with your vacation or your sick to get up to 100%. So we strengthened the plan on that last summer.
Are taxes taken out of that? 60%?
Oh, they're not.
You pay for it after taxes, so that benefit isn't taxed.
Any last questions? Feel free to grab me throughout the day as well. I'll be here all day.
Thank you, Julie. All right, we're gonna take a quick break. Quick being the keyword there. Come back. We're gonna start at 11:05, so come back before that. And we're gonna do a little rapid fire business update session. An hour that we're gonna go through a bunch of different topics. Some finance, sales and marketing, operations, and some division-specific topics as well. And then we'll break for lunch and reconvene and have our breakout sessions after lunch. Just a few more stats that we had throughout 2018. We had 3 people take their sabbaticals during 2018. I think that's worth mentioning because I'd like to see every single person in this room get the opportunity to take their sabbaticals. So it's a great benefit that the company has, and I think if you talk to Danny or Aaron or Noah, they will agree with that sentiment, as well as Chris Rundle, at least within the last 12 months or so. The other thing that Baseline does, and I'm not sure a lot of people know about, is Baseline has a scholarship fund set up for CSU, which is John's alma mater. We were able to give 3 students from CSU scholarships in 2018, and Misty has done a nice job of circulating that information on the website and LinkedIn and things like that. So just another area that we want to make sure everybody's aware of. I just have a few business update things. We wrapped up 2018, obviously, in the last couple of weeks. Tiffany and I are still working on finalizing the numbers, but we will be right around budget both from a net service revenue perspective and a operating margin perspective. Operating margin, if you guys remember, when I've shown the bonus calculation, that's our starting point for bonuses, and that was right at the 15% that we shoot for. So from that perspective, we were more or less right on budget for 2018, and we have a budget set for 2019 that takes everybody in this room from a billable hours perspective into account, and we have 3 open positions that we're still looking for folks to fill that we have in the budget for next year, and those include the project manager PLS up in Loveland, CAD Tech up in Loveland, and a water wastewater engineer. That doesn't mean that we won't hire more than that during 2019. That's just the number of new additions that we have in the budget. So we're looking for those people, and we talked about this a little bit in the past, but want to make sure everybody's aware. We'll take any and all referrals for open positions. If you know anybody from past lives that you'd like to bring on the baseline and they would be a good addition to the team, please let Julie know, and we can go through the interviewing process with that person. Thank you. These 2 bottom graphs are all a testament to the work that you guys have done over the last 4 years from an actual perspective, and then I have the 2019 budget in there as well. And you can see that we're pretty flat from 15 and 16, and with 17 and 18, we have grown significantly, and we hope that that continues in 2019. Again, that's a testament to everything that you guys have been doing, keeping our clients happy, working efficiently and effectively. You guys are in control of all of those things. So please keep doing what you're doing. Continue to pay attention to project budgets. Pay attention to the time that you're spending on projects. Get back to our clients. Keep them as happy as we possibly can. And these are the results of those efforts, is when we can step back and say, we've had an awesome 2017, we have an even better 2018. So the financial results are just an indication of the good work that you guys are doing. I did want to point out, just from like a did you know perspective, we had over 64,000 billable hours in 2018. Of the net service revenue number of about $6.3 million, 74% of that went back to this group of people, whether they were talking about salary, bonus, benefits, ESOP, 401k, those sorts of things. And we hope to be able to continue returning as much of those hard-earned dollars to you guys as possible. You go to the next one. The reason why we're having this day, and the reason why I appreciate those that did speak up about this day, is that growth is not just those 2 graphs that we had on the bottom there of financial growth, whether that's revenue or income. It's personal, it's professional, it's growing as a team, it's growing in our technical knowledge. So use this time, use these opportunities, use your training hours that are allotted. Julie mentioned the utilization targets and things like that. 40 hours of training is baked into those hours, so please use those and work with your manager to have the opportunity to do webinars, go to conferences, do those sorts of things, because those are the personal type growth that we're looking for. Grow as a team, do things together, go out to lunch, work, ask your manager if the team can go out, and then work on your technical skills as well. That's what's going to set us apart as a group. I showed on that graph in a picture, but really for the past 4 years on the land development side, and for the last 3 years on the oil and gas side, we've seen tremendous macro level activity in Colorado. And the conferences and different things that I attend think all the indications that the Colorado economy is going to continue to be fairly robust for 2019, which is some of the realism that we try to put into our budget. The couple things that are positive are the continued growth in population. People continue to come to our state, whether we like it or not, but that's good for our business. The net additions of people that I think I last saw for 2018 was like 60, 70,000 people. They all need places to live, they all need places to shop, they all need places to go to the rec center or go to school or whatever the case may be. So that's all positive stuff for our business. Probably the one negative is the housing prices being as high as they are. But that would mean that people like our Cardell clients will need to build more houses for those people to live in. So from a macro perspective, that's kind of what we see for 2019. Some of the priorities that we're going to have in 2019 are project manager training. We need to establish a better playbook for the project managers within Baseline to define what a project manager for Baseline means, because we want to make sure that you guys know when you're out and about or in the office what those tasks and skills that you need for a Baseline project manager. We've had quite a bit of land development success. One of the things that we're focusing kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum is municipal and on-call work, and we're pumping out the RFPs, and Misty and Deanna are going to talk a little bit more about what our marketing and sales plans are for 2019, but that's one of the areas of focus, is to get into municipalities and be able to work them for projects that basically gives us the opportunity to walk the halls to talk to people, because we have a contract in place with these municipalities. And then more and more we're going to stress efficiency and effectiveness using the tools that we have. Anne's going to talk about Alfred as one of our tools, and when we train with the project managers, we're going to talk more about the project management tools that are available to folks, and we need to up our game when it comes to project efficiency and effectiveness and streamlining things, so we're going to work on that in 2019 as well. Looking even farther than that, in 2020, in the back of my mind is to talk about the client experience that Baseline clients have. I think at this point our clients have a wide range of experiences when they deal with Baseline, and making sure that we're all on the same page as far as our client experience. Just the simple things even of calling back, responding to emails, and we're going to use our client satisfaction feedback to put things in place to make sure that our clients are receiving the best service that we can possibly provide. About all right on time. Yeah. One update that I wanted to give in wrapping up is we have been struggling with CenturyLink on our fiber solution. It's ironic because I've been pounding the table that we should have one project manager for each of our projects, and one of the issues that we have with CenturyLink is that we have two project managers, one for the voice side and one for the data side, which they don't talk to one another, which is very, very frustrating. People show up without being announced and things like that, but just know that we're close. We hope to be able to turn that on here in the next couple of weeks, if not sooner. Tiffany's giving me the look. But just hang in there a little bit longer. We know that the speed of talking between the servers is an issue with efficiency and effectiveness and things that I was just talking about. So this is one of the solutions to get better in that regard. It's just taking a little bit longer to coordinate those things with CenturyLink. Any questions on those topics? All right, I'm gonna hand the microphone over to Deanne and Misty.
Yeah, this would be my area.
The triangle.
Triangle.
The triangle.
Just so I needed
It's
to
a one-sided triangle.
All right, I'm Misty. I think I'm one of the few people that knows or has met everyone in this room. Actually, I think I know everybody in here. But what is marketing? My role is marketing. What is that? Marketing is basically, well, the difference between marketing and BD, besides me being short and Deanne
Yeah,
being
there's a real
tall.
difference between the two of us, and I
Yeah,
think that's
dark.
obvious, right?
Marketing is systematic planning, implementation, control of business activities, bringing together buyers and sellers. But what does that mean? Anything that's outward facing from a baseline, I'm in charge of. So I'm in charge of getting the word out of baseline, making sure that there's a buzz out there created, getting some brand recognition, making sure people know who we are, right? So in a nutshell, I do advertising, and I also do anything that's client facing. So, heads up. All right? Advertising. Getting the buzz out there. It could be a casting a wide net, or it could be very specific. Right? Strategic. And what's business development?
Business development is more about completing or completing the sale. So it's more about building relationships to help people understand one-on-one who we are and why we're the best candidate, and to keep those relationships going so that we can close the deal.
While I open the door, hopefully open the door, Deanne or PMs can go in there and close the deal, right? So, next slide. So here's the difference. Marketing is advertising, branding, getting our name recognition out there. Lead identification. Lead identification, what is that? So you might encounter me on occasion for proposal work. What's the difference between the proposals I do versus the proposals that others may do? My proposals are giant in nature for the most part, and they are municipal-led or public agency-led, which means those are paid for by public dollars, and most municipalities have a threshold of what that could be. Anything over 20,000 or 25,000 has to go to public bid or compete. So that's where I come in and help you put together a proposal or qualification statement to get our name out there in front of the client. And it usually involves a team that we propose, an approach that we propose, a schedule, and dollars amount. And sometimes it goes to interview, and sometimes it just goes directly to selection. So that's the difference of the proposals that I do versus a letter proposal. A private client doesn't need to go to a competitive proposal because it's mostly their money that they're spending, not public dollars. Okay. The other part of that is that anything that I do is also up to public scrutiny. So that means our proposal becomes part of the contract, and anyone in the public can ask for a copy of it. All right, so therefore I communicate baseline strengths and strategies and our capabilities through media literature, which means social media, our website, LinkedIn, our Facebook page. In case you didn't know, we have a Facebook page. And so that's what I do in the marketing arena.
Associated with that, business development, like I said, is all about building relationships. And really between Misty and I, we're trying to bring work in for you to keep you working in the future. So we're building relationships, turning leads into clients, and then communicating baseline strengths.
One more slide. So how do we do this? How do we get baseline out there? What's our strategy? So I meet with every division manager at least once a year to talk about what their marketing plan is. You're like, marketing plan, what is that? Well, marketing plan is kind of our roadmap of how we know what areas to target, because it's based on the feedback I've received from our division managers of where they want to be geographically and what business sectors they want to hit. That's how I find RFPs that we go after, and I present them to our division managers to decide whether we go forward or not to go forward with it. So here is our breakdown of our geo-targets by division. So you can see that Chris Rundle's group is all up here, Routt County, Moffett County, which includes Craig and Steamboat. But then he also has this line up here that you can't see, which is venturing off into Wyoming. Chris Manning's group here is like small mountain communities, so it kind of fans out from Jefferson County from our Golden office. That's where he wants to concentrate on. So we've got like kind of a mixed bag in here, where we've got the planners and our infrastructure through NOAA and our surveyors of where their geo-targets are. Makes perfect sense, right? So that's how I know, and that's how I look for RFPs for us to go chasing after pursuits through the municipalities and public agencies. So once we get that, we do the RFP, we do a proposal, or we can also position ourselves. So there's a watch list involved. It's very strategic. There's a lot of planning involved. We can get Deanne to go in, make those conversations with those public entities ahead of time. Once the RFP comes in, there's a cone of silence. There's no more conversating with those clients, and then we're on our own. But sometimes this is our opportunity to get in front of the client beforehand and help hopefully kind of mold what that RFP is going to look like and position ourselves very strategically for a win. Anything else?
The only thing that I wanted to add is one of the things that's on my list of things to do every week is I find municipalities and I go and meet with them. Sometimes it's just plain cold, never met them before, but they're very open to talking to us and they love talking about what they're doing, and I love talking about what we're doing. And so those calls are really pretty fun, but they're very effective. And so that's what I'm spending a lot of my time doing, is making phone calls and going and meeting with people to just let them know about us.
Alright, so I'll talk to you a little bit about marketing and what I do. I do proposals. Deanne goes and meets and greets people. If you go to the next slide, please. You might be saying, hey, I do that. And you're exactly right. Everyone in this room has an opportunity to market and create opportunities for this company. It's not just me and Deanne or just your manager. Everyone has an opportunity to meet a client, to meet a new person, work or you close on a project. That's your opportunity to say, hey, how did we do? What do you have coming down next? How can we help? Right? Any professional affiliations that you are part of, that's how you like create that buzz. Say, hey, I'm at Baseline. Everyone should have a 30-second elevator speech of what it is we do at Baseline and what you do here. We also have opportunities through driving our Baseline vehicles with brand all across the side and all of our cool jackets and our Baseline wear that we all have as well. And that's it. So everyone has a chance to be a BD marketer as well.
So where marketers are, BD people hand out gifts And I asked people if they would like a t-shirt, rather than targeting, would you like a t-shirt?
Absolutely.
Misty wanted a potato gun, and I said,
Next year,
One
next
more,
year,
Dan, would
potato
you
gun.
like a t-shirt?
Thank you.
I can't stress enough the last part that Deanne and Misty were talking about, the sets of eyes and ears that we have here are only magnified by the amount of interaction that you guys have. Feed Deanne information that you get when you're talking to clients. Feed that back to Misty when you used to work with somebody who now works for Arapahoe County or things of that nature. Even from a entertainment side of things, if you want to take somebody out to lunch, just let your manager know that you're going to take somebody that you used to work with at an old client or at an old municipality or something in your past life. All of these efforts that really, for the most part, can be in your normal course of your day can add up and turn into opportunities that Deanne and Misty can then go and either put an RFP together or close out the deal and get to the point of having a signed contract. So bubble those ideas up, bubble those contacts up, and let these guys know so they can track those things down and get to the point where we're signing more contracts. Thank you, guys.
All right, how's everybody doing? Super awake? All right, cool. So I'm here today. My name's Ann Hutt, in case you guys don't know me. I used to be in charge of the Loveland office, but I have switched positions, which some people also don't know. So I no longer manage the survey group that is wholly Aaron with the help of Doug. But what I do is I make sure that processes are running more smoothly. I hope that I'm doing some analysis to make sure that the PMs know when they should be taking action. And I hope what I'm doing is to be able to help just improve the efficiency of the business. And we've done that through focusing on write-off codes in previous years. We've done that to where it actually contributes to the bottom line, which means that your pocketbook is actually a little bit fatter, juicier, I don't know, healthier. So I'm going to be talking about a couple things today. The first slide is, I didn't know that Matt was going to be talking about intranet stuff, but
Sorry.
nope,
Nope.
go ahead. All right, so this is what we should be expecting as soon as the T1 line is up. Like this is exactly what everybody is going to look like, super fast, super mobile. So, but as you guys heard, it's not there yet. So if you're wondering where is the speed, it's coming, theoretically. All right, so Alfred. It's too bad that Dave Wilson couldn't be here today. He's on vacation, but he is the guy that actually came up with the name of Alfred and people voted on, and this is how we got it. So I was looking for Alfred quotes that would be applicable to our software. It's a lot harder than you would think. So this is the one that felt the most applicable, which is, why do we fall? So we might learn to pick ourselves up. And then of course Bruce Wayne says, you still haven't given up on me. And Alfred says never. And so that's the same thing with our system. So our system is pretty powerful. What we've been utilizing it for has been pretty simple. We've just kind of scratched the first layer. And I think that that's been good. We knew this was going to be a multiple year investment. And so it's not a big surprise that we're not utilizing it with just like amazing things. But I gotta tell you, Alfred can do a ton. And it can help every single PM and division manager to be able to have better margins and to be able to be more responsive to your clients. So, to go to the next slide, it's kind of like the Minority Report in that we have a bunch of precogs that, no, okay, it's not like the Minority Report problem. What it is like is, it's more like this, okay? So it is like the stuff is in the computer. And so all you need to do is to be able to know exactly how to be able to get the information that you want out of Alfred. And that's what my goal is, especially in 2019. So this is an example of a project, actually it's one of Doug's projects, and it's a way to be able to dial in to say, here's what the contract is, here's what we've billed, here's all this other cool information. And anything that is a different color, which is probably a lot harder to see in the back of the room, is something that you can dial into to find out exactly what's going on. So if you're sitting in golden and you're wondering whether or not a field crew already went out there, you thought maybe you had 8 hours of budget, but you don't know what they actually spent, all you have to do is click on this, and it pops up, nope, not that.
Not popping.
Totally different. So when you click on that, then you can see how long the field crews were actually out there. So you no longer have to wait for a Thursday meeting to be able to find out, hey, did you guys go out there? You can find it yourself. The files are in the computer. So we have lots of different ways to be able to rate projects. In the past, we were pretty concerned about adjustments and write-off codes, and we still are. We're still concerned about that. But as we know, sometimes you write off one month, but the same project will write up the next month. So we started to get smarter, and we started looking at, well, what is the effective multiplier? And that's something that Matt loves, everybody loves. You guys even love it. You just don't know you do. But it's a way to be able to find out how profitable a project actually is. And so this one, I love that I actually took this, Doug and I were talking about this project last week, and I saw it and thought, I'll take a screenshot of that. This is a 3.41 multiplier, which means, and our goal is 3. So this means that this project so far is way more profitable than lots of other projects. And as Carl Chesley used to say, you have 10 projects and you hope that, what was it, like 6 of them you break even on, and 2 of them you make money, lots of money on, and 2 of them you lose money on. Like, that's the hope, right? And so it's kind of like this, right? We know that all projects aren't built the same, but what our hope is to be able to help you guys manage the projects closely enough so that way you guys will be able to be responsive to what the client's needs are. You'll be able to be on the phone with the client when they happen to call you for another change order or for another increased scope, and you'll be able to quickly go here to say, you haven't paid us yet. Hey, can we talk about that? And all that means is that it's just that much more profitable. So, which we all like. I mean, I don't know anybody in here who doesn't like to get paid. So, go ahead and go to the next screen. So this is a good example of labor multipliers like I talked about before. And we can really slice the data any way we want. So what we can do is we can also take a look at how are the divisions doing? How are any sort of project manager doing? What are we looking at where we see, multiple project managers that have scores that are kind of falling? Is it because they have huge amounts of projects, right? Like, Demo has 190 projects, come on. Like, he's a Superman, but he's not, like, that's crazy, right? So how do we make sure that we're culling it down, that we're making it more manageable? How do we know when it's time to hire somebody else? So you can go to the next slide. But that's kind of the whole thing that we're wanting to do with Alfred, is to take the data that's already available and to be able to help us make good business decisions so we're even more profitable later. So Alfred, right? So I'm that person that sends out Alfred messages. I'm that person that's here to be able to help any PMs. As we go through the PM training, I'm also that person that's going to be talking about how you can do what we're learning about in Alfred. But I don't only do Alfred. I don't only do Zoom. One of the things that is my background, so I am an engineer, but my background is more process engineering. So I came from a manufacturing environment, and we love to measure things, right? Like, that's our exciting thing. And that's what I like to do too. So my goal is to be able to help take any process that we have that's kind of cumbersome or clunky or doesn't seem like it flows very well, and be able to change it and optimize it into something that's a little bit better. The hard part is that as we're growing, and as we have 3 different divisions, and we have 3 different locations, it makes it a little bit tough. So what I would ask you guys for is, especially the people that are new, right? So especially anybody who's been here within the last 90 days, I would definitely want to hear from you. So if you guys are going through this and learning something and going, well, this is stupid that this is done this way, like, this doesn't make any sense, I need you guys to let me know that doesn't make any sense. So we can come in there and we can figure out, how do we make this better? If you hear an answer, if you ask that question, like, why do we do it this way? And the answer is, because we've always done it this way. Like, I hope that you guys, like, see red flags and hear clanging bells, because that's the worst answer. We should be doing it because there's actually a business reason to be doing it. We should be doing it because our clients want it, because it makes sense. Hopefully you guys have seen the Parthenon and that balance triangle that we've talked about a lot, I hope, the last year. But we really want to make sure that we're balancing things between our financial statement, between what our employees want, and what our clients need. And so if there's a reason why we're doing something, I sure hope it's one of those 3, we can point to one of those 3 groups and say this is why that's happening. So that's my goal this next year, is to really make sure we optimize what we're doing. So this is a little bit of an insight into my life. So this is what I do each quarter is I quantify what it is that I'm working on. So when I'm sending out messages or I'm updating the intranet or making sure that we're changing even how we're doing fleet vehicles. All of what I'm trying to do is try to make sure that Baseline as a whole is moving in one general direction instead of like just a bunch of stuff from different directions. So if you guys are ever curious about what it is that I do or want to be able to help out, I love that and I would love to be able to help, have the help. And to say do more often. Okay, the next slide. So really like this is just another visual of, sometimes it feels like, you know, John, I love his vision of we want to make sure we hire self-motivated people, and it's cool. And like that works so well when you've got like 10 people. But when you have 50 people and everybody's super self-motivated, it makes it kind of tough to all go in the same direction, which makes it tough to have us be an even more profitable company. So that's my goal, is I want to be able to come in, to be able to help us improve processes and efficiencies, to be able to help you guys be able to fish yourself in Alfred, to be able to see exactly what it is that we're doing, and for you guys to be able to help make some of those decisions because you guys are self-motivated people too. So are there any questions about those 3 topics? All right, I know I speak quickly, so, but I do that anyway, even if I'm not presenting. Okay, then I'll turn it over to Noah.
So as Julie said, we added 18 employees this year, and that's pretty unprecedented. Going into my 9th year at Baseline, this is definitely the most growth I've seen as a company, and half of those employees, if you include the interns, were hired in infrastructure group. So that's certainly a huge growth for our group.
Oh, sorry.
I did miss one of the folks that should be on here, and that's Jesse Carano. He actually accepted in December, but then joined in January. So what I'd like to do is just kind of have everybody kind of just stand up quickly and just kind of starting with Jesse. If you just stand up, raise your hand so everybody sees who you are. The next one would be Mike Swanton, joined the Golden Office. Kyle couldn't be here. He actually sustained an injury snowboarding this weekend, so he's taking care of his health today.
The risks of working in steamboat.
Yeah. Sarah Foster. Alexander joined the Loveland office this year. Wade, way in the back there. And Sarah Parsley. So if you guys have time throughout the day, just introduce yourselves to those new employees. If you haven't had a chance to do so, it'd be great. So in terms of projects this year, I think we saw a lot of growth in northern Colorado, some projects that, typically we had done a lot of oil and gas work in the past in northern Colorado, so it was great to see a lot of growth in the transportation and land development side. Some of the projects that were completed this year that were designed the previous year, 8th Avenue reconstruction, for those that don't know, and some of the surveyors worked on this project, it's all of downtown Garden City. They did a total revamp of their streetscape throughout the entire stretch of Garden City. That project was designed last year, completed this year. Christian Brothers has been a huge client for us. There's 4 locations on there. Todd Rand actually was instrumental in getting those projects completed. Kappa Kappa Gamma is a project in Fort Collins that, though it was a Northern Colorado project, it was designed out of our Golden office. It's just a good example of projects that can be designed and not necessarily in the office that's closest to the project location. Some of the projects that are in the works right now, or nearing completion, Human Being Coffee Shop, Canvas Credit Union, we have multiple locations. One of them is being designed in our Northern Colorado office. Johnson United is a project that, again, is a Northern Colorado project, but is being designed out of our Golden office. Allied Building Products and pad sites for Anadarko, Extraction, and Crestone. Next slide. One thing to mention, Deanne has actually brought in a good portion of some of our new work that we're working on, and that's certainly helped on the land development side for some of our growth in northern Colorado. We are continuing to do a lot of work for Anadarko. That work kind of takes place within multiple offices. Crestone well pads, again, takes place in both northern Colorado and Golden offices currently. Extraction, we have a good portion of well pads that are being completed in northern Colorado, but we're also doing compressor stations and very large central gathering facilities. Some of the stuff that we're doing on the central gathering facility side includes a large project in Weld County and another new project that we're going to be starting up within Aurora. And equally, both of those projects is probably about $250,000 a piece, so they're very sizable projects for us. The 10th Street RV site is a project that we're just getting underway now, and a couple of church projects that we're going to be starting into Wellington Community Church and Foothills Unitarian Church, which is the Foothills project is actually a project with Peter Ewers that is a long relationship that we have with Ewers Architecture. Next slide. Golden projects, so we've done, I think the most exciting thing is some of the schoolwork we've done in Golden this year. Great Works Montessori is a large Montessori school in Lakewood. It was a challenging project from the perspective of there was no room for detention, so we had to go underground on that site, and it was a pretty complex underground detention system. Apex School is another fairly large school in Castle Rock, and just cumbersome from the process that Castle Rock requires. Just the tedious checklists and numerous things that Castle Rock requires. The Apex School was a challenge for sure. And then I think the one thing I'm most proud of is we finally got our foot in the door on the federal side, starting with the 6th Avenue project out at Buckley Air Force Base. We've had a good relationship with the Sabre contractor out at Buckley Air Force Base. 6th Avenue was kind of our first successful project. We're just wrapping up as-builts on it, but for those that don't know, the entry control facility was a project where we had to do calculations on the speed of vehicles, maneuvering. That access control had to be under 2.5 seconds as required by anti-terrorist requirements, so that security forces could react to a terrorist coming onto the base. So it was a unique project. It was an interesting project, and I think one that was successful both from the design perspective and our relationship with the contractor in the Air Force Base.
Sorry.
So along those same lines, that success yielded a few more projects. One of them was the ball field access road. That was a more simple, just straight roadway project, but it had challenges from the perspective of earthwork balance and access controls for that roadway. They had multiple drainage projects that they sent our way, along with some restriping along Steamboat roadway. The Union Hotel project, I think, was a challenging project for us just from a grading and drainage perspective. The client and the contractor also was challenging to work with, but I think in the end it was a success story and something we learned a lot of lessons from in terms of being able to do detailed grading on a site that had a lot of earthwork challenges. And then, as I mentioned, the Extraction Badger Central Gathering Facility is just going out to bid now and will be under construction this year. That was certainly a large challenge. It was a project that started in northern Colorado with Jay Davis. Todd has been consistent as drainage engineer through the project, but then Wade kind of stepped in on the back end and shepherded it through final construction drawings, and now we're getting under permits. Next slide. So preliminary and final design on some of the stuff we're working on now. Cottages at Rolling Hills is just getting wrapped up. That's been a great example of a project that planning group kind of started on, and then as it got into final design, we took over on the grading and drainage side and permitting, and survey obviously helped out with final plating. So as a kind of a cohesive project, that was one that almost all groups worked on and contributed to. Foothills Business Park, again, another one of those projects that planning started out on. We've been involved in that portion of Alameda 470 for years now. And survey has played a large part, engineering has played a large part. It's a really good team project that we've been working on. We're getting close to hopefully submitting on that here in the near future, and hopefully we'll see that go under construction here, most likely second quarter of this year. So, Hans Ranch Townhomes, that was a unique partnership that we had with the developer. Hopefully we see that as a success here shortly. We had an equity investment, an equity stake in that project, and carried a lot of our services through various stages of the project, various milestones, and we got paid along the way. We had some decent markups on those services along the way, so I think that was a good project that we can put our hat on. It was a large townhome project. It was an infill project. It's along the light rail, so it's going to get a lot of visibility for us. Denver West Home Advisors parking expansion. We've had a long-standing relationship with Denver West that just continues with this project. That project is under construction right now. It's a large parking expansion out at Denver West. Canvas Credit Union, again, in addition to the Windsor one that I mentioned that we're working on in northern Colorado. Mike Swanton has been instrumental in taking over project management on both the Castle Rock and Parker sites, and Morgan has also been a designer on those projects. NRail, I think Vince is going to talk a little bit later about kind of the success stories we've had at NRail, but that success continues with our eCorp relationship. eCorp is a on-call contractor out at NRail, and they continue to feed us civil engineering work out there as well as survey work out at NRail. We've got probably about a half dozen projects going on out there right now of various sizes. The Extraction Matador project, another central gathering facility out in Aurora, another large project. We've done some early grading on that, but that's going to take up a pretty good chunk this year. We're anticipating probably another $250,000 in revenue on that piece. Breeze Through Headquarters is a Northern Colorado project, but yet another one that we're doing out of our Goldman office. Kids Are Kids was a successful project that we had in Parker, and hopefully we can yield some future Kids Are Kids sites out of that relationship. And then AutoNation Jeep Subaru, so we've had long-standing relationships with auto dealers, as many of you know. Commercial Building Services was the client on both of those. We continue to do work for Commercial Building Services, and it continues to yield a lot of revenue and backlog for us. Next slide. So some of the backlog that we have going into next year, looking at what we have right now, we have about $3.7 billion in total revenue that we're anticipating to come in next year. And looking at our backlog right now, we have about $1.2 billion in contracted backlog. So this is just a list of some of the things that we're working on going into next year under contract. And then Denver projects, it's been a heavy residential focus for us. Yarrow Townhomes is a project that is designed and under construction. Indigo, we just made some major submittals with surveys help and planning's help on those. And then Water Resources, we've got some continued work for Element Engineering in the town of Hugo. Blackhawk has been a good client of ours for doing some Lomar work, and Element also gives us on-call drainage. Again, Indigo, we're going into final construction drawings on 3 different portions of that project, Kelly Subdivision in Arvada, and Remington Homes continues to give us work. We've got a decent-sized proposal that we're hoping to get kicked off on in Jefferson County for a portion of the site along 470 and 287. And then Chris Manning is actually managing the Conifer Village project, which is a large residential project in Conifer. I think the next slide is Chris.
Chris Manning, I know I've met most of you. I think there's a couple faces that I don't recognize, so hopefully at lunch I can meet you and shake your hand. I am the division manager for the Water Wastewater Group. I lost a couple good engineers last year, so the group is kind of me and whoever knows group I can poach as I need them. I'm going to go through mine really quick since I know we're short on time, but I think the big thing for me for 2018, Mount Warner project, we started it in 17 and it wrapped through into 18. That was one of the bigger projects for us. This was phase 1 of 2, and our design fee came in with construction admin at about $350,000, which for a few people chipping in is a pretty good project, and a lot of people touched that project. Chris Rundle, Zach, Steve, and a handful of people who aren't in this room now. So that was a good project for us. We have kind of do a range of projects. So a good example is that STARS water system is a project up in Steamboat. It's for a little campus that the STARS group is building out there, and it's basically like a 5,000 gallon a day water system to support this facility. And we go from stuff like that to like the Louisville capital improvements project, which the two Louisville water treatment plants are 10 minutes drive from here, and those are 2 5 million gallon a day plants that we did some work on. So 18 was a good year, and we had a very diverse range of projects. And then heading into 19, we are got kicked off on a water system modeling project for Mount Warner up in Steamboats. We've been verbally told we're going to get another project with Louisville. We're wrapping up a project that's been going on for 2 years now with the city of Steamboats. And then, as Noah mentioned, we've got a new development up in Conifer that's from scratch, so new water, new wastewater systems, and all the infrastructure to go along with that. So. And,
Sorry, quick update from Chris.
Is there enough time for me?
Yeah.
A real quick overview of 2018 for the Steamboat office. We had a handful of projects with the city of Steamboat Springs, ranging from a new roundabout near the base of the ski area, sidewalk project in the downtown corridor, on-call work for the utilities department doing water and sewer inspections, and several others. So it's been a great relationship established with the city and even other departments like Chris mentioned, so his projects with the city. We also had a handful of private land development projects ranging from smaller to mid-size, commercial like warehouse buildings, expansion to the bowling alley in town, a residential project for infrastructure serving a originally platted lot in downtown Steamboat. Looking at, also, we do some work for Hayden Excel, they have a power plant in Hayden, and with the CQA engineers for their ash disposal facility. That's a contract that is year over year we've been working on for four or 5 years. Looking forward to 2019, we have again several projects that we are under contract for with the city of Steamboat Springs. One I'd highlight is a local agency project that's, well, the city is a local agency for a federally funded project that will go through the CDOT design review process. So I think it's one of the first ones that our company have done, so it would be a great kind of stepping stone for us to maybe do more of that work in the future. Again, we've got some other private land development work contracted going into 2019, so it's exciting, looking forward to the next year.
It's obviously hard to fit everything we've got going on in 10 minutes, so if anybody has any questions. Thanks.
Ethan's here. Melanie, Melanie's back over there. She's our planning technician. Ethan's been with us for 8 years now. Well, we ended up 8 years, right? Yeah. Melanie just joined us. Vince Hooper, Vince has been with us 2 to 3 years. 2 years. Julie Estrel, 3 years. Ben, just less than
3 months.
3 months. Andrew is not here today. He's down in Argentina. He went to a buddy's wedding down there. Jessie is also not here today. She is down in Puerto Rico. Also visiting family down there. So, and then also to introduce Deanne. Deanne has been with us for the last 8 or 9 months. Has transitioned somewhat away from us, but she's been our landscape architect and planner. So we appreciate having Deanne around, and we'll still use her landscape architecture skill sets as we continue to move forward. So as I indicated, go ahead, Tiffany. What do we do in the planning department? Well, we're the people who talk a lot. So everybody knows Sid blabbed and blabbed and blabbed all the way through the movie. But anyway, we're the talkers in the company. So it's usually noisier in our office than it is elsewhere. One of the things that we do, kind of talk about marketing, I want to just bring up a little bit. In the fall every year, we sponsor the Colorado APA Planning Conference. We're the lead sponsor every year now, and we're going to do it again this year. We get a lot of face time and a lot of name recognition up at the conference. So this next year, we'll be going up to Snowmass. Pretty much all of us go up there for it's about a 3-day session, and we get a lot of name recognition up there. So all the towns, all the cities generally have planners at that. Last year there was 500 attendees. So we get a lot of face time with communities around the state. Go ahead, next slide. So what do we do? I think most people know, but a lot of what we do is we provide governmental services. We assist the city of Blackhawk. We've done that for 9 years now. We're essentially their planning department. Same with Elbert County. We've been down there 3 years now. We're their resource for reviewing rezoning applications, subdivision applications, and site plans. We also work on code amendments in all the jurisdictions we work in, help them write new codes. We're getting ready to adopt a completely new development code at the end of the month in Elbert County. Sign code amendments and comprehensive plans. We're in the next 3 months or so, we'll have a new comprehensive plan for the city of Blackhawk completed. We recently won an RFP with Misty's help. Town of Windsor, we're going to be assisting them with development review applications here as of January 1. And then Brighton, we've been associated with Brighton for the last 4 years, assisting them. And actually I had a phone call with them tomorrow. We're going to probably start doing some assistance with them again soon. So I think they've lost some staff. What is the other thing that we do? Next slide. Just let's go back to Blackhawk. So there's a lot of things that we get to help out with up in Blackhawk. There's a residential component up there that we sometimes get involved with, but there's not a whole lot of residential development in Blackhawk. We get to help out with the casino industry and then all the new construction that's going on up there. There's the Monarch Hotel is under construction, it's another 500-room hotel, and Julie has been assisting me a lot the last year with working out the details of getting a 500-room hotel constructed and opened. It's going to be open in a phased fashion. So Blackhawk Kid once more again, Tiffany. And then out in Elbert County, it's kind of a completely different atmosphere. A lot of rolling hills, trees, green pasturing lands out there, and residential development out there for the most part. So those are the 2 large contracts that we provide a lot of time serving. Next part is that we provide private services to help landowners, developers, builders with either residential, commercial, industrial, or some type of energy applications. As Noah indicated, we work hand in hand on a lot of projects. We usually work on the front end of a project with rezoning property, getting site plans reviewed or approved, and then hand them over for construction with Noah's work group. So I think that's it for me. Any questions on what we've done? And okay, I think I'm done. Here.
Alright, so you're ready to fire now. 2018, I first looked at our budgetary numbers. I was pretty amazed at where those were coming in at. I was assured that the personnel is there, we'd hit the numbers. This past year, we may have lost a couple members, but we were still at budget, so that's a good testament to everybody else picking up. Everybody's, when we lose people, picking up. There's clients are super satisfied. We were able to end the year on a strong note, so. I'd say the majority of our work for the survey department is in roughly 2 buckets. We have our large oil and gas clients we do a lot of work on. This past year, we had one project, 3 years in the making, finally got approval. It broke ground at the end of the year, and the work's looking to continue into 2020. As soon as that project got approved, they're on to the next big project. So we've already started that. In 2018, that strong work will continue through probably 2022, 2023, so we're already developing that long reoccurring backlog. The other large bucket of work we do is support services for the other departments. We got to see a lot of projects, I would call them legacy projects, that I worked on in the field when I was a party chief here. Those projects are going, and they're getting developed, and there's been a great communication working with all the other departments. We've seen large growth in Northern Colorado with DM coming on, bringing on some of her business development projects. That's going to continue. We are looking to continue developing Northern Colorado, actively seeking general contractors. Subdivisions are going up, construction stakeout, land developers to get in on the front end to see the project start to finish. And we're trying to get into some CDOT work. Infrastructure around here is starting to get a little backlogged. Another big thing we've seen in the past year is, well, we've had employees kind of come and go. Other companies have had employees come and go. But with them leaving and going to another company, they brought baseline along with them. So we have grown our clientele in the survey department just based on the reputation of some of the projects and products we put out. So it was good to see that happen. Going into 2019, we're already being affected by the government shutdown. Some of our resources we rely on to process some of our data, we don't have. So there's already a little unforeseen hiccup in 2019. We will be looking to support Steamboat if and when they get their surveyor on staff, support services for them, whether it's CAD packs, baseline standards. Actually, that's it.
Nice.
Any questions? Thank you, Aaron.
How was your sabbatical?
That's pretty good.
Understatement of the year. All right. Seriously, any questions for Aaron or Vince or Chris Rundle, Chris Manning, or Noah? Any questions for those guys on the information that they were presenting? One thing that is super impressive and is a competitive advantage for us is the cooperation that all 3 of those groups show as you guys produce the work product that comes out of this company. There's a lot of companies that I've been a part of in the past where groups like that silo themselves. No, you're not going to use my person, or don't call Misty directly, you gotta call me first, and things like that. So I don't see any of those sorts of behaviors, and I think that's a testament to the cooperation that we have in this room. So from that perspective, please keep that up. That takes a lot of effort too to do that, because there's more conversations, there's more coordination, there's more sharing, therefore there's more work that needs to be done in order to make sure that we're not overstaffing somebody or understaffing somebody, so please keep that stuff up. We have a couple minutes, right? I would like to recognize the training committee who did the work to help put this day together. So if Jamie and Ryan and Ann and Jesse and Julie Laugen, Julie Esterl, and Aaron would all kind of stand up and please recognize those guys for a good day, and thank you for that. We will be breaking for lunch. Lunch will be served downstairs in the lobby. If you come out of the elevators and you go to the left, there's a little like nook there where all of the sandwiches and lunches are being spread out. So if you can go ahead downstairs and eat some lunch, talk to somebody you don't know. Please be back up here about 12:50 or so.
55.
I'm measuring this. 12:50, so that we can get situated. We're going to have a little bit of a success story round for about 20-25 minutes, and then we will break into our breakout sessions for the afternoon. So if you guys will back up here around 12:50, enjoy the lunch, and thanks for your attention this morning.
So we've been talking a lot today about challenges, success. This portion is kind of bringing together where basically there were, tough jurisdiction or a challenging time to get through, or just a way that people work together well, and ultimately came out with a success. So if Misty would come up, she's going to talk to us about a challenge and success story that she came through.
Hello. So I have a success story, challenge as well. As you know, proposal work can be very tedious and timely. A lot of people don't have time to work some of the proposal items into their daily routine. So, but proposals are a necessary evil in order to win work for the future. So let me tell you about a story where that we did for the planning department last year. Overall, in 2018, I submitted 30 proposals. So a lot of those proposals were either project-specific or on-call. So an on-call is where a municipality has a variety of work that they want done, and they want to pick a few either engineering firms, surveying firms, or whatever planning companies to do various projects and tasks throughout the year. And those are the types of projects that keep on giving, because those are kind of long-term. They're usually a year to 2 years with additional 2 to 3 year extensions. So possibly 5 years before it goes out for a recompete. So I was working on a couple of proposals for the planning department where it became evident that maybe we shouldn't be chasing after these because of our qualifications in these arenas. Where Vince saw one of my opportunities I sent to him for the town of Windsor and said, hey, this is right up our alley. It's an on-call for planning, land use development, and I think we should go after this one. Let's scratch the other 2 that you're working on, and we will pursue this. I'm like, great. Like, oh, it's due in 2 days. Fantastic. So Vince was able to let me use a few of his folks. Vince Hooper, Vince Harris, Deanne Fredrickson, Julie Estrell, and we came up with a great proposal in 2 days. So I drove it up to Windsor, delivered it, we made it on time. A couple days later, we found out we made the short list. So what that means is when you're shortlisted, it goes into an interview phase. So we made the short list in addition to 2 other firms. And so I'm like, hey, let's try to do some prep work for this to make it more successful. Something that we don't normally do is what I'm told here. So what that means is let's think about a leave behind. So we did a leave behind, which was kind of a quick and dirty brochure, trifold, sometimes it's a table map, where it kind of rehashes a little bit about our approach and our people for the project, and it's a leave behind. So you pass that out to whoever is participating in the interview from the city side. So we did one of those, and then we put together a PowerPoint presentation. So the PowerPoint presentation kind of went through, again, highlighting different proposal pieces, like who our team was, what our approach is, how we can help, what our past projects were. So that came together pretty quickly. We had, I believe, a 40-minute presentation time with a 20-minute Q&A session. Is that right? And so I met with Vince Hooper, sat together in a room with him, went through the slides, talked about, timing, talked about let's get questions of what we think we could be asked so that you could be prepared to answer those so that we don't go over the time limit. Given that we were in the first position, we were at 8 a.m. interview, so which is a little challenging. Sometimes it's a good place to be, sometimes a bad place to be. So I'm like, hey, you should stop and get donuts, which you didn't do.
We tried.
You should do donuts. They're going to be in the morning, right? People will respond better when they get fun and funky donuts to eat. So anyway, so the team did go, and I believe Jesse put together a nice board, since that's normally the planning department does do board presentations at different events. So they got to go in there and did their song and dance, answered questions. The team was really engaged. They were engaged with the municipality. They were also able to kind of linger behind and see who was coming in after them, which is always a plus too, because they don't tell you who the other firms are necessarily that you're competing against. So subsequently, we were awarded that project. So a very brand new client, brand new town, and now we're doing their land use application reviews for them starting this year. And so that's a 2-year contract with possibility of, I believe, a 2-year extension. So 4 years of ongoing work for the planning department. So that's my success story. Any questions?
Thanks very much, Missy. Our next contestant on Success Stories is Chris Manning. He's coming up right now.
Okay, I have to admit I didn't put a ton of time and effort into preparing this. I had been thinking about it over the last couple of days. Mine is not necessarily one story, it's kind of a theme across several maybe smaller stories. And really the theme on it is thinking outside the box and trying not to get into a repetitive nature of what you're doing. It can be kind of hard in a lot of the industry work that we do that some projects can feel repetitive and to just feel like you're just plugging and doing the same thing over and over. But there's a lot to be said for going out and finding better ways to do things, finding better ways to make your clients happy, and better ways to make a project successful. So I came up with kind of 4 projects over the last, I guess it's a year and a half, where my group had areas where we did this, and kind of the results I think that happened, or that came about from being able to think a little bit outside the box, and then also making sure that you communicate to the clients what that does to them, what benefit they got from you, not just providing a document that they requested, but explaining to them kind of maybe some of the things that you did that went above and beyond, or some of the new technologies or new methods that you incorporated into the work that you did. So the first one was Mount Warner, the water treatment plant that they have. If you've ever been up there, I know a few people have seen it. It doesn't look like a water treatment plant. It looks like a little hotel or something. It's a very fixed building on a very fixed site, and they came to us and said, we need to double our capacity from 1.5 or 1.8 million gallons a day to 3.5 million gallons a day. We've got to meet all these new compliance regulations, and here's our footprint, and here's the amount of money that we have. And the group before us that was working on the project wasn't really coming up with good solutions to how to solve their problem, because they were using fairly standard engineering theories. And so we looked into it a little bit more, did some research, kind of went outside of our area, looked at some different types of treatments and different hydraulics, and came up with basically a siphon system through the plants, which for this type of treatment was pretty unheard of, but came up with all the calculations in the backup and talked to a lot of peers and to make sure that our design was going to work, because we couldn't just refer to this section in AWWA or this section in the whatever guideline manual there was. It had to be something that we really had to dream up and come up with the backgrounds to make it work. Another one that was much more simple but got a similar benefit was with Louisville. They had a simple issue of it took them a month to drain out their clear well at one of their water treatment plants, because whoever originally designed the plant, which amazingly I actually know who designed it because I worked for that person years later, but they didn't make a way for them to drain their clear well, and it was an 800,000 gallon clear well, so it took them a month to drain this thing out. And they had some conceptual designs for really sophisticated pumping contraptions, and it was going to require a high capital cost, a high operating costs, and then a lot of regulatory approvals too, just based on what it was. And we came to them and said, why don't you create a bathtub where you just drain it into it and use the head of the bathtub to help push things through? And it blew their mind. It was such a simple idea, but it was different than what a lot of engineering firms may propose, which will be very complicated, very convoluted designs. And it was interesting on this one because we were sitting at a pre-proposal, a couple days after they finally tested this design, and it was constructed and they tested it and came to us at a pre-proposal right before it and said, it worked amazingly. It took 2 days to drain the clear well. Now it went from almost a month to 2 days for 3 yards of concrete. And they were at a pre-proposal with a lot of other firms around there, really talking up how great this super simple design was, but the other firms that they were talking with just weren't able to think outside the box and come up with a design like that. One of the other ones, Boulder Booster Station, also a bit outside of the box, but they have a fairly remote site, very expensive to get three-phase power from IREA up to this site. They're trying to figure out how to make this work, and we worked with a bunch of vendors to look at other methods for getting the power that they did have there to power the pumps that they needed, which were 60 horsepower pumps, and all they had was single phase power come to the site. So working through that, and then working through with the water district there, and working through with the fire marshal to make them understand how all this stuff that was different than what the regs said were going to be better than what their regs were telling them that they needed to do. So, and really what the results of that is that, for Mount Warner, we potentially saved them about $1 million and a half for what was being proposed on this plan, based on basically scraping the building, starting new, having to go back up another 3 stories. Louisville, we've got, like I mentioned, it was at a pre-proposal. They mentioned that we were not low on this recent proposal, but they want to use us anyway, so they're just trying to figure out how to get it through their council. And then the Boulders is what, again, I think the 3-phase power was $400,000 to bring it up to the site, and the stuff that we're proposing is like $70,000. So the client there is actually also the client for a conifer project, and that's really what alluded to him saying, I like you guys, let's use you for this much larger project, because save them a couple $100,000 here. So make sure, if you feel like you're just doing the same thing over and over, look at what other people are doing, look at it technical review papers, look at, go talk to equipment reps, things like that that are maybe a little bit more on the forefront of what's going on, what's coming out, and just make sure that you're not feeling like you're boxed in as you're going through a design on no matter what it is, whatever the project is. So that's it.
For someone that didn't think they were very well prepared, it sounded very good. Thanks, Chris.
Great
message.
Got today.
Our next story comes from Zach out of Steamboat. He's going to give us a rundown on kind of a unique situation that they encounter up there in a kind of design build situation.
Zach, did you still want me to do the intro?
Yeah.
Sorry, Chris.
For everyone that doesn't know me, I'm Zach Hendricks. Work at a statement office.
So is that
The mic's not on.
The microphone isn't working.
Not
so
on.
Either turn it on or you don't use it.
on now? Nope.
Yeah. Okay.
Is it on now?
Here.
Green's on.
Let's talk about it.
There's a sync button on top.
So Zach and I are gonna kind of tag team this. We both work together on this project, and the intro to the project was we responded to an RFQ with the city of Steamboat Springs for a design services for a component of a downtown improvements program. It was like an $11 million improvements program, and this was a piece of it, multi-year project. It was kind of a streetscape thing, like I said, so it was building new sidewalks and curb and gutter and bike lanes, kind of making a more pedestrian-friendly and bike-friendly environment along one of the downtown corridor streets in Steamboat. I think the unique thing on this project, which is why we kind of chose it as a success story, was the approach the city took. They wanted to do a kind of a modified design build rather than a traditional design bid build. So it kind of took us out of our comfort zone and what we're used to, and made us think outside the box a little bit, because there were some unique challenges and other things that came along with it.
Yeah, and I think that was the main challenge, was the design build. We prepared kind of schematic site, but everything was designed in the field, working with the contractor. So one of those, the reason was that I think we started in that summer, build it as we went. So coordination was key, coordination with the city, what do they want to see, coordination with the contractor, how can they build this, coordination with property owners. The city actually assessed them 75% of their sidewalk portion costs if they did not have existing sidewalk. So we did take their considerations into account also. Also challenges, it was like 7 blocks spanning from 3rd to 12th Street. So challenges with maintaining pedestrian access, parking. Some things we did, like we minimized construction to 1 block at a time, but also had to alleviate parking, but then construction, we had to be methodical on how they moved to do that in a timely manner. So coordination with is key here, and we did a lot of things to accommodate. Don't have really that. We're using a survey from 2007, so it's how do we tie in this grade? Where do we need a wall here? This tree's got to stay. We moved the sidewalk. One example, we worked with a guy who had some boulder stones from the old quarry, but there was a good big grade, so we actually reused those stones for him to build the wall. And then also another challenge was because we were assessing these properties, so each owner, we had to create a separate exhibit and cost estimate for each individual lot. And as we're going, so it's constant in the field, back to the computer, doing it on the fly.
The nice thing was it was right outside of our office door, so Zach could just look out the window and do inspections.
So a lot of key things, I think I just wanted to relay on what we learned to help others on projects moving forward. I think just being flexible in coordination was the big one I keep hitting on, but you know, you're working with a team, a contractor, so you want to be thoughtful of other people's ideas and work as a group to come up with the best solution. And a lot of times, you know, we're going to build this next week, so we have to have something timely, but has to be, you know, meet requirements, has to be constructible. So I think that's one thing, is just, you know, keep an open mind, work as a team. That really helped us be a success in this project. Along with that, communication and documentation is key too. A lot of times we're working with a subconsultant to look at the trees, and we might be talking about a tree that we need to remove, but we won't be there for a month, and when we get there, well, we got to go back to our meeting notes. So that's one thing that was big for this project, was really just documentation. What did we decide last week in the field on, you know, this curb or something? So that was good that we had those to go back to. And I think in any project, really, you want to make sure you're like, have a phone call to just write that down, what took place. So you always have that to go back on. And I think also details, attention to details with happening on the fly. Little things like a little lip on a curb ramp that was out of compliance can really make a big effect. There was actually a few of those that contractor had done and had to go back in and correct those. And so just as, especially on a project that's moving, little things can add up. And I think any project that we want to pay attention to those things. And the last is just keeping a good eye, for, you know, in the public. The project like this brings people to see it, it's downtown, and we always want to have a good product to put our name to. Let's wrap it up.
Yeah. The last thing I was going to say was it's kind of neat too, being in a small town and being parts of these like kind of improvement infrastructure projects. At the time, I lived right up the street from the kind of the start of that corridor, and I remember before we started the design or were under contract, I was walking in the winter with my 3-year-old, and we had to walk in the middle of the street, because there was no sidewalks. I was like, this is ridiculous. There's no sidewalks in a world-class resort town. So it was neat. The next year, being able to get on the sidewalk and being part of that. So I don't know, it's something I think we're proud of and wanted to share with you.
Thanks everybody for coming up here. It's awesome to hear about that from other people's perspectives. That concludes our success story portion of the day, and here's our Master of Ceremonies.
Wait, Matt, I think we have one more.
Who do?
Vince.
Oh. Nobody told me. Come on up, Vince.
I could have gone without it. It's okay. Is the mic working again?
Thing on.
My voice is not good. We'll try it. John seemed to have good touch with it.
Yeah, I just said the
It's
same.
working.
It's working.
Is it working?
No.
Just hit it broken.
Well, there's a sync button on the bottom.
Hit it too hard.
Okay, so it's on. I hit the sync and I held it in until it reset. And now, now it's happening.
Hello? There's one now.
Can you do him next? Yeah.
Well, my success story is a little bit of a history story, and it has to do with strategic planning that occurred about 10 years ago. And those two words were an issue 10 years ago. So where did Matt go? Oh. John, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
Yesterday, there was a group of us put together. We went on our strategic planning for this year, 2019. Done a little bit later for this year than usual. So I think what I had to do is just have John quickly explain what we do with strategic planning to understand what the normal deal is with dealing with strategic planning, so that everybody kind of has an idea of what it is that we do at strategic planning. Sorry, John, I just realized that I kind of thought that would come up before I went through this, and so
Yeah, no problem.
because it was a problem 10 years ago.
It's really how we strategically look at the future of the company, looking at a 5-year plan, a 1-year plan. How can we get, where do we want to go? Do we want to grow like crazy? Do we want to not grow like crazy? How are we going to get there? A roadmap to the future is really what strategic planning is all about. Yeah, we laid out our 5-year goals or 1-year goals, and I don't know, do you want me to tell them the details?
No, just really just the process, just so that they know.
Yeah, and I think infrastructure is going to do the same thing on a micro level, but on a macro level, we look at the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, find out where our threats are, our weaknesses, our opportunities. We always come up with 1 or 2 initiatives for the year that we try to tackle during the year. Last year, we one of the big ones was find office space. We went through two moves, I guess, one in Steamboat, one in Golden, so that was up there. The playbook training program is rolling over to this year. That's part of our strategic initiatives, but just kind of on a 30,000 foot level, we look at where we want to be and what we want to be. We didn't talk about our mission and vision this year because we really tackled that hard in 2018 and just got it into place at the end of this year, at the end of last year. So just all the strategic stuff, 30,000 foot view.
That's good. So what happened 10 years ago was not strategic planning. So as got alluded to by Chris, when we decided to have Chris open up the office up in Steamboat, the economy hit. You can skip the economy hit in problems in 2008 and 2009. Who here was in the professional workforce in 2008 and 2009 and lived? I see you lived through it. Worked through, or didn't work through those years dealing with the downturn in the economy. That's half to maybe 3/4 of the people. So those were problem years. It was a problem. So and in the triangle. So go ahead. You can go to the next slide. So back then, as I kind of just said, in 2008, it just kind of sucked. It was strategic planning that year in 2008 was not fun. At the time, we had about 14 people on staff, and we literally met at the Golden Hotel and decided who was not going to be with us anymore. We didn't have enough work in place at the time, and there's 5 of us here that were there then. There was John, Chris Rundle, myself, Tiffany, and Steve Batchelder. Did I miss anybody who was around then? I think I caught that. So strategic planning, go ahead, hit the button. Strategic planning was more like strategic cutting. So it was a concern. We had a concern, and unfortunately, Steve was one of those casualties. I don't know if anyone knew that, but let Steve know that we didn't have enough work, and we hoped he'd be able to get back, and we're super thrilled that he's back. So go ahead to the next slide. So these were the headlines back then. Things weren't so good. I know this kind of sounds like a Debbie Downer story, but that's not what it's for. Go ahead, next slide. So in 2009, we kind of got into a Monopoly game, and we landed on what I call the chance spot in the Monopoly game. So we were able to go and collect our $200. So by chance, one day in the late fall of 2008, Tiffany and John were delivered a door hanger on our Denver West office space. At that time, we officed in Denver West. Is this working now?
No.
It's not working.
I think so.
It is?
Yes.
Okay, so we were officing in Denver West at the time. So I think it was a Wednesday night. The Department of Energy that runs the campus for NREL, they were going to have what they called a NEPA, a required NEPA meeting that night. It was not a meeting to explain to any engineering companies what was going to be proposed on their campus, but it was just a federal required meeting just to let neighbors know that something's going to be happening on the campus adjacent to them. So Kenny Boyd was with us at the time. He was Noah's predecessor. He and I went to the meeting that night, and all they did is just explain, hey, we think we want to build some buildings on the property, and we only have one way to get into this place. So we think we're going to need another road. So there were no other engineering firms there that night. We just happened to go because we happened to be neighbors. The Department of Energy campuses, or I'm sorry, their office building is in Denver West. So we just got this door hanger. We weren't invited. We just decided we'd follow up and go over to the meeting. So go ahead and do the side. So what happened? So Kenny and I went to the meeting, and they kind of explained what their issue was, and they're going to need a road. And so Kenny and I didn't say anything during the meeting. We talked to Drew Denimore, who was kind of running the meeting, and the other gentleman from Department of Energy. And after the meeting, we walked up to him and we said, you know what, we kind of know all the landscape and all the people who we're probably going to need to deal with. That's Jefferson County and Jeffco Open Space. State of Colorado had land around there. Denver West, the Stevenson Group. A lot of the decision makers, they kind of said, well, we haven't even thought about putting an RFP together. They said, you know what, you guys seem like you know a lot, and you know a lot of people. So why don't you write a scope so you kind of know what needs to be done. So the next 3 or 4 days, we wrote up a scope, explained what we thought needed to be done, and they went ahead and used our scope, published the RFP. There's about 10 companies. About 10 companies that were that proposed on the project. Literally, the RFP was the scope that Kenny and I wrote, along with John, and we got to use our chance card, and we were selected as the company to move forward. So, in time, we were able to bring Steve back then by getting this project, and this project carried us through those years. Had we not gotten that project, or had the Red Cliff project at the time, I think things would be a lot different for Baseline. Go ahead, next slide. So that kind of tipped the scales for our opportunity here at Baseline. Here once more. You know, we had a huge chance card. If we wouldn't have gone to that meeting that night, we would never have gotten that project. We were able to write the scope. It wasn't something we marketed for. It was kind of Misty was kind of explaining the quick marketing opportunity. This one it fell in our laps. And I think we're all grateful for that. Next slide. I'm just going to go briefly through this. I know you see pictures sometimes of the roundabout and the entrance, but you don't have kind of what we did, how we went through this project. So this was, that is a regroup, March 19th of 2009. Go ahead once more. I know I got 1 minute. I'm going to go over that. The initial contract was for $45,000, and that was due to an initial transportation study and trying to figure out. Next slide. We had to come up with a whole bunch of transportation alternatives. We had to look at Moss Street, McIntyre, Kilmer, Joyce, and Isabel Streets. Those are all potential access points to the NREL campus. Next slide. Does anyone know where that roundabout is? It's on Moss and South Golden Road. You're driving back and forth towards Mills from the office, whatever. That's what the intersection looked like prior to it. Next slide. So in that presentation in 2009, this was our initial conceptual plan to them. And go ahead and hit it once more. So after about 12 months of study, again, and after about 18 different alignments that we looked at, again, and about 18 months of design, and 12 months of eminent domain. That was another issue with this project. Property right here was privately owned, and their attorney was not going to let them just sell the property, so it ended up going through an eminent domain process. And we got fully involved in that. After 12 months of construction, and by the time we finished this project, it generated $1.3 million to this company. So it really helped us get through the tide of the bad years of 2009, 8 and 9. Next slide. So at the end of that, Moss Street roundabout and roadway was constructed in this location here, which is the Moss Street. So just to give you an overview, as Chris can tell you, Chris did a lot of the engineering on this. There's a drainage way here, there's a floodplain up here, there's a high pressure gas line that comes down through here. This roundabout is what I call a Lego style. There's a huge gas connection underneath the center of the roundabout. That's why there's nothing built in it. It can be just taken apart with the large stones that are there, and they can work on that and just rebuild it back, just put it back together like Legos. There's a ton of different things. Jeffco Open Space ended up relinquishing land. They don't do that. We had some federal NEPA and 404 permits to go through here, and then the eminent domain, because here's the pasture for this guy's house. This road went right through the middle of his property. So, and that's what the roundabout looks like today. So I just wanted to give people just a little bit of history of kind of those few of us that were around back then and how we worked together to get through the through session. I think I one more slide. One of the cool things was on a Sunday night. It was in the spring. These 120-foot long girders for that bridge were driven up to the site from Pueblo. I think it was Pueblo is where they were built. As you can see, this is a regular semi-truck. 120-foot long. So all of those came up on I-25. They had a special route that they took, and then we met them the next day, and we had to stay there and watch them put them all in place. So that was pretty cool. So when you drive over a bridge, you know, there's a whole lot of work that, I know all the engineers know that, but this is a pretty cool project to work on over time. So that's our success story, and thanks to everyone who's around.
Thanks, Vince. Sorry for trying to cut that short before. Do we have one more person coming up?
Yes! Woo! Success!
Yeah! Aaron Devo, come on down.
Shy. I'm a little shy.
Thanks, sir.
I'll make mine quick. It's more multiple projects, but there's a common theme across all of them. Last year we had a project called Swansea. We get a phone call, the client tells us they need a surveyor out there the next day. They're typically behind schedule. They're going to fire the other surveyor. They have 2 weeks to get it done. We need to get a crew out there every day until they get this project done. You know, going into the project, they're firing a surveyor, they're behind schedule. It's not a good environment. We were able to get out there, but it was 2 weeks turned into 4 weeks every day, successfully completed the project. Similar project, Duck Club, done work for this client. They're using a different surveyor for this one. They call us, it's all messed up, we need to get out there and fix it. We're firing the other surveyor again. Final project was the Cabana project. The client never even realized they needed a surveyor until they're set to be out there to start construction. Call us, you get out there tomorrow, we need to lay this building out. All three of these projects we successfully completed for the client. Left a good impression on them. It's all because of the flexibility that we've built in with our skill sets, staffing, everything in there to make these projects happen. And those are great business development projects. Complete those projects. So another quick success story I just want to say is I did take my sabbatical this year. It was very successful for me. I encourage everybody to do the same if they're eligible. I know it might have been tough times for some people when I'm gone, additional workload, but everybody picked it up. I came back not knowing what I was going to walk into. It was a pretty seamless transition back into everything, so I would say it was successful on all fronts.
Thanks, everybody. Those are awesome stories to reflect upon and just pick off a couple of those points that the guys were talking about there, whether it's responsiveness or the fact that you never know where a project's going to lead from 45,000 to over $1 million, or a client that you bend over backwards and you're kind of rumbling under your breath because why do they wait till the last minute? But those are the clients that are going to continue to come back and give us more and more work. So thank you all for those success stories. We'll make a note to make that longer for next time.